July 1986, Madison Square Garden. Run DMC is performing their now iconic single, My Adidas, to a packed house.
Me and my Adidas do the illest thing. We like to stop out this with diamond rings. My Adidas! Come on, put them up in the air!
It might seem weird that they're telling concert goers to raise their sneakers in the air, but it's actually a show of defiance to the critics of streetwear. Run DMC probably didn't know it at the time, but this would become a pivotal moment for the business of hip-hop and fashion.
I'm Domati Pongo, and this is Meaning in Music.
My Adidas!
When Run DMC hit the scene in the early 1980s, they represented a new generation in hip-hop. They came with a raw style, with the black leather jackets, the sunglasses.
You think about the early hip-hop groups, Africa Bambaataa, Soul Sonic Force. A lot of it was about the pageantry. They looked like they came off the mothership. They looked like they came from outer space, you know.
And then Run DMC looked like the street guy. The hustler with money, the leather jacket, the hat. From their sound to their look, we're like, hello, it's a new day.
An Adidas executive saw thousands of fans in the crowd waving their Adidas shoes in unison. It was soon after that, Run DMC signed a $1 million deal with Adidas, the first major brand deal in hip-hop up until that point.
Word up, and we always rock our Adidas on our feet.
My Adidas really turned on the light bulb in the minds of shoe executives and fashion executives, seeing hip-hop as a potential partner, collaborator on marketing clothes and shoes.
Today, we know rappers and fashion go together like what Kanye said in his track Devil in a New Dress, one of his many odes to his favorite designers.
You'll hear Cardi B be talking about Balenciaga or Louis Vuitton red bottoms on her biggest song to date that made her popular, Bodak Yellow.
These expensive, these is red bottoms, these is bloody shoes. Hit the school, I can get them both, I don't want to choose.
When you just talk about the power of rap, Biggie says on Hypnotize, I put holes
in NY, Ultra DKNY, Miami, DC, prefer Versace. All Philly hoes know it's Moschino.
Every cutie with a booty bought a coochie. See, Big really did that for Coochie, you know what I'm saying? He encapsulated Coochie.
When I think about Jay and I think about, you know,
And I don't wear jerseys, I'm 30 plus. Give
me a fresh pair of jeans and a button up. We invested so much in our jerseys, and you just had to put them in the closet as soon as Jay said, I don't wear jerseys, I'm 30 plus. Like, he just shifted the whole thing.
According to the Wall Street Journal, Fendi, Balenciaga, and Gucci were called out 664 times in rap and R&B songs in 2018, up from 31 collective mentions in 2010.
What else do rappers rap about other than clothes?
Because of hip-hop's influence on mainstream culture and consumers, luxury brands clamored to collaborate with rappers. But that wasn't always the case.
I think what's interesting is when you look at fashion in general, historically, Black people were usually locked out of that realm, especially when it comes to high fashion.
Clothing labels, the designers tended to try to distance themselves from hip-hop because it was so controversial and seen as less than.
Enter Dapper Dan's Boutique, opened in 1982 by designer Daniel Day, also known as Dapper Dan. It was open 24 hours, catering to rappers like Big Daddy Kane and LL Cool J.
I'm Dapper Dan from Dapper Dan's Boutique, East 125th Street in Harlem, and I'm the designer for the stars.
So when you go up in there, it was either rapper or hustler in there. It was no in-betweens. There was no middle class in there. These were thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars.
So that's why you had really trendsetters like a Dapper Dan who was doing his own thing, unauthorized, but doing his own thing, drawing on the work of a Louis Vuitton or a Gucci, you know, with his store on 125th Street in Harlem.
We all love to be better and be bigger and have luxurious brands on us, but he did it in such a way that spoke to us with the sag, with the the way we like to dress and turned it into urban. He's a genius.
His logo mania designs became wildly popular, but he was soon shut down for violating copyright.
You start seeing the runway 20, 25 years later, and they got Dapper Dan designs on the runway.
It's just crazy to see how these luxury brands literally fought to put him out of business and then basically turned around and tried to sell his creations back to us.
They had to hire Dapper Dan. It's so crazy his position in Gucci now. They had to do the right thing because it was clear who's influencing their designs. And that all comes from hip hop, comes from the streets.
You cannot separate my fashion story from the hip hop story.
The contributions of designers of color and women like Misa Hilton and April Walker have often been overlooked, but their iconic styles have changed the face of fashion.
You see hip hop everywhere you go. All the way from the slums in Ghana to Johannesburg, being in Tokyo or being in South Korea. You know, they're rocking different iterations of hip hop fashion.
The fashion houses started recognizing how powerful hip hop was. If you look back at old Tommy Hilfiger fashion shows, you see Aaliyah, you see Destiny's Child, you see Naughty by Nature, mixing and mingling with high fashion models and representing these brands.
Streetwear, baggy clothes, sneakers, all styles associated with hip hop culture not only penetrated mainstream culture, it started driving it.
A lot of the luxury brands need rappers and need these musical artists to stay relevant and to reach this new generation.
Once artists start supporting these brands and talking about them in their music, hit records, you could forget it.
By most accounts, luxury fashion brands relate to hip-hop's global impact. Its influence on youth culture in places like South Korea and Japan began spreading rapidly in the early 80s through film.
When films like Beat Street and Breakin' and Wild Style start traveling around the world, you had young people hitting the movie theaters, seeing hip-hop culture on the big screen, and literally not only going to see the movie multiple times, but the moment they're leaving the movie theater, trying to replicate the dance moves that they saw on the screen.
In Asia, the way that a lot of folks were being exposed to hip-hop wasn't necessarily by embedding themselves with Black culture or in Black communities, but really getting it imported into their countries. One of the most vivid ways that I saw hip-hop and Asian culture connecting was through the Wu-Tang Clan. When you look at that dynamic of Wu-Tang, it's not necessarily African Americans being in direct contact and cultural exchange with folks in China. It was very much by way of watching old kung fu flicks.
Hip-hop's love affair with Asian culture and aesthetic did eventually lead to a cultural exchange. And now, some of hip-hop's biggest fashion influences are from Asia. Still, the artists themselves reign supreme.
Just look at me. Hold on. Zoom back.
No complaints. So what's your most memorable moment tonight?
My outfit.
Kanye West shifted the perception of how a hip-hop artist dressed. The producer-rapper has collaborated with the likes of Louis Vuitton and Nike and launched multiple lines. Most notably, his Yeezy brand.
Pharrell had such a different style than what we had seen before. He was very much influenced by skate culture, and he was always wearing a bathing ape, and then he launched Billionaire Boys Club. And over the years, we've just really seen him come into his own.
Pharrell and Kanye's contribution to hip-hop and fashion is really interesting because we saw hip-hop moving away from just streetwear.
Baggy clothes and sneaker culture have blown up around the world. But hip-hop fashion isn't limited to streetwear, and actually, never has been.
If you look back at the way male rappers used to dress in the 80s, the first rappers were wearing crop tops, almost high-heel boots, tight pants, leather pants, long hair. Even in the 90s, Busta Rhymes was wearing dresses. Andre 3000 was wearing wigs and dresses and makeup.
Though hip-hop is seen as a hyper-masculine genre, Artists have always experimented with their style, and today we see more of them pushing gender norms, like A$AP Rocky, Young Thug, and Playboi Carti.
Playboi Carti wears a lot of like really tight leather pants and big furry sweaters, and he poses in a way that you would not necessarily traditionally define as masculine or as a rapper would, but he dresses more like a rock star from the 70s. I think if you look deeper into hip hop and you look at all the subgenres, then you'll see the different ways in which people dress.
Hip-hop's journey with the fashion world started at the margins and is now firmly at the center, permeating nearly every trend we see today and making room for new faces in fashion.
Talking about fashion, what else? Talking about fashion.
The representation is increasing because the influence and the inspiration has long been there, but fashion is a very white industry.
A lot of these new Black designers are making a huge contribution by being where they are. Laquan Smith, what he does reminds me so much of like what Misa Hilton was doing back in the day. He does a lot of monochromatic outfits, cat suits, fur, also Telfar Clemens, and his line is unisex. He is really revolutionizing the way that we look at fashion.
Some of these different brands have been reshaping the narrative that hip hop and Black people are limited to streetwear and it can't be high art.
They deserve to be seen and heard. You know, I just hope to see them continue to have a seat at the table.